Hi, Tom. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk to you because you are an awesome former Disney animator turned now Christian animation.
Yes.
I'm so excited because I grew up watching those movies. I looked into your story
hmm
and I The Lion King was actually the first movie I ever went to see in the theater, and I was in the first grade.
Oh, you just made me feel very old. Yeah, that's something I'm still very proud of course. We had no idea that Lion King was going to be a hit. We actually thought, oh, okay, it'll just be another Disney movie, but it turned out to be this billion-dollar film and a theatrical all the things that came from it, like the New York Broadway show and all those things. But yeah, I mean, that I was a young man at the time, and I did young Simba in that movie. And so, but I was only like 22 years old probably at the time.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I was like
Tw-
seven.
Maybe 23. But yes, we do have a little bit of an age difference.
Yeah, I mean, I was just it's just amazing how fast time life goes. And
Yeah, it is.
um I'm just curious. I am curious, which I saw Beauty and the Beast on there too. Did you do Beauty
Yeah,
and the Beast?
I did. I worked on Beauty and the Beast. That was my second feature film at Disney. I'd worked on Rescuers Down Under just before that, which a lot of people don't remember.
Oh, I
Um,
do.
oh, good.
My brother loved that movie.
Good. You should. It was a fun movie. But yeah, I worked on Beauty and the Beast. It was my first role as an animator. I was like an assistant animator. So it was a beginning animator.
So which one did you do for Beauty and the Beast? Which
Well, because I was a beginning animator, this is the fun part of being a beginning animator. Not, I'm kidding, I'm being sarcastic. You get whatever all the other animators don't want to do. And so I did a lot of the villagers that are singing about killing the beast, and they have their pitchforks and their torches and they're going up and then eventually they have a big log and they're breaking down the door. That wasn't fun to animate, but that's what I did. A lot of that.
Okay, let's talk about your current work. And okay, well, let's just say you also did VeggieTales, is what I
Yeah.
read. Did
Yeah,
you?
I left Disney in about 2000. Really, it was to follow my heart, my faith. I felt strongly that God was calling me out of Disney to then, and I just finished Mulan, and then did a little bit on Tarzan, and I felt this calling to go to use my abilities that He gave me more directly for Him, and so that led me to VeggieTales, to working on at Big Idea Productions and doing their first feature film, Jonah, but also creating the LarryBoy 2D animated series.
Um, your current work, which is The Light of the World, that's coming
hmm
out it's tomorrow, right? Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
I've noticed, okay, side note, I've noticed that, and I don't know if I'm wrong about this, that the animation is very similar to like the facial structures and everything to Prince of Egypt.
You know
Is
what? We've heard a lot of comments about that. And thank you. I take it as a compliment because Prince of Egypt is an amazing work of art. No, but I mean, that's not what we were going for. We weren't trying to. And I think if you put them together, it's one of those things you'd like, oh, that looks very similar to that. But if you actually put them together, you'd probably go, oh, no, it's not really like that at all. But, it's similar, I suppose. Yeah.
I did see that. I looked at it. I went and took a second look to look up the Prince of Egypt, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh wait, maybe not. But
Yeah.
it does
But
remind me of the Prince of
I,
Egypt.
I think it's a combination of our colors and, we have a lot of browns, but then we have some brighter colors that mixed into that. And, a lot of things can kind of make you kind of think about something else. And obviously the context of the two, that's Disney DreamWorks only, biblical film they made. You're going to automatically kind of put them together a little bit. But yeah, again, I take it as a compliment. Prince of Egypt is an amazing work of art.
I did
Yeah.
not get to finish because this was so last minute. I did not get to finish watching the movie. I'm going to try to watch it later.
Oh, good.
But what I saw so far is so good
Yeah.
and
Thank
just
you.
so, I mean, animated. Like, is that not, I mean like that in a different way, not like animated as in drawing, but animated as in like just so alive.
Yeah.
And I love the story. So,
Well, that's what we strove for. I mean, honestly, the acting and the performance side of the characters is what I was trained in at Disney. And same, my twin brother worked on Light of the World also, and we both had worked at Disney, and we hired him to be the animation director because he had also co-directed Mulan back at Disney. And so, while he wasn't one of our directors, John Schaefer was my directing partner on this. We put him in as an anim and also like co-head a story and as our animation director. And it was so that we could get that Disney sensibility that we were trained in and use it for good, you know? And we were able to do that. I thought we brought our characters to life in a really fun way.
yeah, so what exactly, I know you were a co-director. So what
Mhm.
did you do to bring this film to life? What was your role?
Well, actually, I'm going to say for both John and I, because we were pretty equal partners in this. We definitely had our things that we were better at, and so like John was very cemented in, we're both believers, we're both Christians, but he's very cemented in and had done another series for Superbook, called Superbook for CBN, and so he's very cemented in a lot of the historical research of the times and things because he'd done that for Superbook, but he also had told a lot of Bible stories through that series, and so kind of knew also how internationally people would react to things, and so kind of knew the rules of going about telling a biblical story, and also how the customs and things that go along with that in internationally, but also culturally in that time. And that we kept drawing on constantly, that exposure. Then on my side, I had the Disney experience of being a 2D animator at Disney, and this was a 2D animation production. And so therefore, we needed a couple dinosaurs on the production, myself and our producer Pam Darley and my brother, where we knew the ins and outs of how to make a 2D animated film, but also to bring 2D animated characters to life. And so a lot of my concentration was on the personalities of the characters of like, okay, well, okay, it's Peter, and we don't really know his personality. When you really read the Bible, it's very factual, right? It's telling all the facts, it's giving you all the backgrounds, and they're powerful statements, right? Obviously, they're life-changing, uh, truth in the Bible. What it doesn't do that we've gotten used to through culturally is this sort of entertainment value, right? Is we're very much used to storytelling in sort of a Hollywood way. And so that adaptation of the story and going, okay, but no, if if Peter was, and this is probably a weird way of putting it, but in some ways you can equate characters to your high school friends, right? And you can go, okay, if Peter was in high school, because they are teenagers, in our film, they're in their 20s, and then John being the youngest is like 13, 14. All right, if he was in high school, what role would he play? To generalize it, he'd probably be the football player, honestly. He'd be the guy that is the leader and is constantly and kind of has an anger problem. We see that in the Bible. Like so we started pulling from the Bible and the little hints of personality that we can get. Andrew's like he's like a fanboy of Disney. Not Disney sorry, of Jesus. And so he's the guy that's like the true believer right away. And he at first thinks John the Baptizer is the Messiah, as they did in the Bible. And but he's like fanboy. Oh wait, if you're not Jesus, where's Jesus? Because I got to find him. He's excited about meeting, and so he looks at him almost like a celebrity, and he's in like that. And then John is the skeptic. We kind of play him that way because he's got to be the character that we follow through the whole story. And he's the youngest too. So it's a coming of age story about this kid who has to leave his family to go try and find this Messiah that they've been hearing about for hundreds of years. And many people have given up hope that he's ever going to come. But John is a believer and he's like, no, Andrew says this is the guy. I'm going to try and find him, and he might be able the guy that can save my family, and not only my family, my people. And so that's sort of the adventure that they go on. It's all biblical, it all happened, but what we did is we kind of sort of framed it in a way to say, okay, if these are their personalities, how would they act and react? And some of that we don't know from the Bible. We don't, even when you read a verse that's Peter saying something, you don't know if he's yelling it or if he's saying it softly. And those little intuitions and contexts that you put it in make such a difference in bringing it to life in a fun and way for a story. I've been
Isn't
in Christian media for years now since I left Disney, and so I've been really enjoying kind of helping to kind of create new series and now a feature film, Light of the World.
wow. So how how fulfilling has it been in comparison to working for Disney and then using the gifts God gave you to glorify him in even a deeper way? You're bringing joy to people no matter what. But
Yeah.
what makes this so fulfilling?
It's a really good question. I mean, I love being at Disney, and I still look at it as some of my most cherished memories because as an artist, it's like I made it to the Olympics. Like that's the top, right? And so I learned so much. The people around me, I still have great friends from those days. And we worked on an amazing string of 90s to 2000 hit films that are still around and people still talk about them and watch them. Um, and so that is its own special place for sure. And that's a pretty huge, pinnacle to have hit. But I must admit, when I got into the Christian side of, and I was a believer during those years too at Disney, but now that I was now more directly doing Christian content and media, it's a whole different level. But I can feel like I'm now bringing my full self to the job. Honestly, when I was at Disney, I had to kind of keep my faith and my Christianity and almost, I won't say to keeping God out of the job. I won't go that far, but I couldn't talk about him in the hallways. I couldn't talk about what I learned at church that last Sunday. Those kind of they didn't want that. They would be like, no, go in your office, shut the door. That's not. We don't want people over. And HR would actually have a little talk with you if you were doing that. And so, yeah, no, because somebody would complain and say, "Oh, I was offended by what this person said about his faith," and I wasn't even talking to that person, right? Like that stuff would happen. They would just overhear something and be offended. But now going to say Big Idea a few years later, I was in meetings where we would stop and we would pray and have a moment where we totally brought God into every part of our job and our lives. And man, I can't tell you what a difference that is for a believer, for somebody that cares about God and says openly, and that's me, but that's also you, I'm sure, and everybody listening is like, you want to say openly about your faith, right? I want to be able to do that. I could do that now. And then also the added thing, which is we spend so much time like Light of the World. This film took us at least 3 years. I was on it for 2.5, but John was on it a little bit longer before that. So you can easily say 3 years to make this movie. And all that time we're making it, and this is true of Disney too, you're waiting for that laugh, right? I have to wait 3 years for a laugh that we write into the script, right? We think, oh, this is going to be funny. Hopefully he'll laugh. I have to wait 3 years for an audience to hear that gag, right? And so it's such a delayed experience, right? And then but on the faith side, there's some powerful things that we're trying to show during the crucifixion. And then how does John cope with now he's gone? All the things that he thought and hoped were going to happen, that he was going to be a king that was going to slaughter the Romans and save the Jews. That's what they thought he was doing. He was going to come as a warrior king, and defeat all of their enemies. He didn't do that. He died. And now they have to face, what did that mean? What was that all about? Well, of course, he rises again, and they see what it was all truly about, why he actually came, why he had to die for their sins. And through that, we're showing that to the kids of the world, many of them that have never heard this story before because this is going to go wide. We're going to send this, abroad into areas that have never heard this story before. That outdoes anything Lion King ever did in my mind, the importance of it. And so that's what I really think is the difference is I'm making things for the kingdom now, truths that need to be heard by the world, and they will be heard. I know that that's what Christ says in the Bible, that these are not truths that are going to fall on deaf ears. People will hear
That's so inspiring. What would what would you say to people who struggle in the secular work world, who are they'd like to take a leap of faith, but they're kind of afraid to because they're not sure what to expect, or
it.
they're afraid to live out their faith in the workplace? I mean, I think that's a pretty broad question for anybody, not just people wanting to watch your movie.
I know, it's so hard to give advice like that to people because every situation is so different, right? Some of you that are listening, you have a situation where if I speak out about my faith and maybe disagree, and this was kind of true at Disney too. I was in meetings where I knew they were pitching stories like future ideas for films, and many of the believers in the room didn't agree with everything. We kind of didn't like that element. And why do you have to go there with the story and talk about how they prayed to Mother Nature, or whatever? And but knew that that was going to fall on deaf ears and worse, maybe even get you kind of taken off of the project. And I've known many animators and artists and story artists through the years that have either gone to their supervisors and asked to be taken off of a project. But what that often means is, okay, well, now you're not going to have anything to do for a little while, and we're going to wait for you to quit. We're going to put you in a back room, move you in an office somewhere, and wait for you to sort of give up. And honestly, I've seen that happen. I know people that that's happened to. That can happen in the government, right? That can happen at you can work at a hospital and that can happen. It's not just, within the animation or Hollywood, let's put it that way. So how you deal with that? I mean, gosh, it's a very hard question and something that they're going to have to sort of answer for themselves. I will say when I hit that part, I was praying a lot. And I will say I'm going to give my wife credit. Um, I remember I was praying about it. I felt this yearning. I didn't want to admit to my wife that I was thinking about leaving Disney to go work for this tiny little company in Chicago that was making VeggieTales. It was such a step down in my career artistically, but also, pay wise, and we'd have to sell our house and move. I mean, like everything, all of our hopes and dreams. And I was sort of at the top of my game at Disney. And I started to tell her about, well, I'm talking to these guys in Chicago. It's not going to go anywhere. Let's not take it very seriously, but I really am excited about what they're doing with VeggieTales. And there's something about it that's just got my heart. And and it wasn't like I was hating Disney. It wasn't that. It wasn't like I was hating Disney and this looks good. I would loved what I was doing here and this looks good. And anyway, my wife went for a run and she prayed about it and she came back and she was crying and she said to me, "I think we're supposed to go." And she wasn't crying out of tears of joy. She was crying because she didn't want to go. We both kind of didn't want to go, but honestly, and she knew she was giving up her dream home that we just built and our life that we loved in Florida when I was working at Disney. And I knew I was giving up what was my dream, honestly, what I thought was my dream, Disney. But what we found out was he gave us greater rewards. We did move to Chicago. We ended up having our twin daughters there. Um, our family grew closer. And I was frustrated, honestly. The other half of that was not everything worked out the way I thought it was going to. But years later, and that's the thing, we don't always know the payoff right then and there. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make is that we just follow and not everything is going to be rosy. That's not what we're promised in the Bible. But what we are promised is that everything's going to be okay, that he's going to have us. And we were taken care of. But then 2.5 years later, Big Idea goes bankrupt and I get laid off. And it was a bumpy ride the whole time. I was pushing for them to do like other things and let's try this, let's try that. Some of those were just my goals, honestly, now that I look back. And they knew what they wanted to do. But they go bankrupt and I'm sort of left in the cold. And I come back to Disney because it was the best job that was out there and they needed help on a Brother Bear, the film. And I came back for that temporarily. And but we were, it was a roller coaster. Um, what we were blessed with, and this is how I want to end this story, is we ended up moving here to Franklin, Tennessee, where we live now. And this was 22 years ago. And Christ just rolled out a wonderful life of me now independent, having my own company, and us loving where we live, and our kids growing up. We have 4 daughters. They grew up in a wonderful lifestyle here. And it was very clear. And then I got to go to conventions and things where I would hear stories years later how LarryBoy touched this child. People coming up to me and crying and saying how VeggieTales changed their lives, or Superbook later on, and now prayerfully Light of the World. That I'm going to hear those stories too. And we don't often get to see that cause and effect. That I did this, and years later I heard these stories of how that affect other people. That's a blessing. Some of that we're going to hear in heaven one day. We're going to hear how that decision and how that affected people, but something comes from it. That's why we have faith. Faith in unseen things.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That was amazing. And it reminds me of, you know, the phrase, Jesus, I trust in you.
Yeah. It's blind trust. We all know it. If we can't admit it to ourselves to go, look, we have blind trust, and that's like faith is what faith is. The definition of faith is believing in something unseen, right? You unproven, right? And there's plenty of science to the Bible. I do believe in that too. There's plenty of things that point toward the science side of things, and you can prove certain things. We know Jesus was on this planet. It's been proven. A person named Jesus. What we don't know is if he was the Son of God. That's the faith part, right? And that's what I believe in. I believe wholeheartedly that he was the Son of God. And then I have to also then believe why he came. He came to die for my sins. And that's why we make those hard decisions in life, right? Is that, okay, can I go to my boss and say, I disagree with this because of my faith? Um, that's something we all have to decide. But something good, something bad may happen right away, but something good will come from it.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add about your project?
Yeah, here's, and I don't want to sound commercial. It's so important that people go see this movie opening weekend. And this is the Hollywood formula that we all have to play in this business, is that it matters. That don't wait. I know a lot of people hear, oh, that looks good. I'm just wait for that to come on a streamer. We haven't made those deals yet. What we do know is it's coming out this weekend. We've made that deal, and it's coming out theatrically across the US and parts of Canada. So please see it September 5th or this weekend through the 7th. And because we don't know beyond that. And I can't promise. A lot of people are asking me, well, is it going to come to Netflix? Is it going to be on a streamer? I don't know yet because they're waiting for this opening weekend to actually open those doors. So with that support, we get to open doors. We get to get other ways for you to see this and your grandkids and everybody else. And so please come and support this film. This is the film, honestly, that everybody's been waiting for. Christians and parents have been asking for from Hollywood. We made it. It is edifying for your kids. It is funny. It is entertaining. Um, and so if you don't come and support that, then you gotta accept all the evil that is coming out of Hollywood. And by the way, it is pure. Our film is called Light of the World. We're the light, this film, the the darkness is who we're going up against. A major horror film is coming out the same weekend. Those are the two big films coming out this weekend is Light and Darkness. Don't go to the horror film. Please come see our film.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to sharing this with our audience, and I hope everyone goes to see the film.
Yeah, thank you.